Well, good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. Renee, please show all board members present except for Mr. Satterley and Ms. Gilkey.
Yeah,
Oh, there she is.
We knew she was.
All right. Okay, would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move forward with the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes tonight?
No changes.
No changes? I'll give Ms. Kraft a minute here.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Okay. You have any changes on the agenda, Ms. Kraft?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Be 5-0. Thank you. No public comments on agenda items tonight. So we'll be moving into board planning, and we have an update on multicultural, and I think
I'll do that.
Ellen, thank you.
Board, as you know, part of our strategic plan is the establishment of a multicultural advisory. We held another meeting recently where our goal was to try to finalize a specific action plan. We use a similar kind of template that we have used for our strategic plan, and a copy of this is available to you electronically. I will just tell you that our two major goals that have been defined are, number one, to give the district input and support on how to serve the diverse group of children in Greater Clark County schools, and the second goal is to develop a recruiting process that focuses on attracting and hiring minority candidates. That's okay. I'm trying to maintain my concentration. I'm going to stay focused.
You're doing well.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, the first goal, to serve a diverse group of children in Greater Clark, we want to utilize the work of Ruby Payne to make GCCS staff members more aware of students from diverse backgrounds. Ruby Payne is a foremost expert, and we would like to maybe enter into some kind of a book study related to her work this year, and the action plan, that would be our step for this year, and then we would look to implement some of her strategies for the 15-16 school year. We also provide a breakout of our students demographically as part of that action plan. The second step is develop a program that will enable staff members to make home visits prior to the start of each school year to increase knowledge of student backgrounds. That's also part of Ruby Payne's philosophy, and to try to get all of our staff members out and making home visits before school year starts and just introducing yourselves, welcoming them to a new school year. Did this in another school system, and the teachers thought it was one of the best things they had ever accomplished. So you get a feel for where kids come from. 3, develop a program that will recognize the diversity of GCCS students, and there are already some programs going on at specific buildings. We want to take it to every building in our district. And then implement a mentoring program to provide support to diverse students to help their academic and social development. So those are the 4 action steps that have been recommended by the advisory. In goal 2, which is again that idea of recruiting and attracting more minority candidates, we would like to investigate the possibility of on-the-spot hiring of minority candidates at job fairs. There aren't very many of them, and what happens is there are a lot of districts that come in and are prepared to make an on-the-spot offer. And so when you're fortunate enough to find one, if we don't have that capability, we're not going to gain any of those candidates. So through our contract negotiations over time, we'd like to make sure we have that capability. 2, develop a plan that increases support of current minority employees that builds to leadership opportunities. We want to make sure that we're identifying those individuals, come from diverse backgrounds, and make sure that they understand that we are very interested in taking over leadership roles. And 3, we want to use our College and Career Readiness Initiative to attract, identify, and encourage our current students to become teachers, go to college and come right back and be teachers right here in our own backyard. We have an extensive, diverse pool of students in our district, and we think let's identify them early and let's really encourage them to come back. And we think that's probably the strongest of all of the strategies. So, Board, it is our plan to begin implementing this action plan as part of the strategic plan. And we'll keep you on top of the progress. But the committee, I really appreciate Mrs. Kraft as a member of that advisory. I think it's a good group. I think we're always looking to increase the size, but I've been very pleased with the work that's been done and very proud of their efforts. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
I don't know if it's really a question, but a comment. On number 2, where you've got to develop a recruiting process that focuses on attracting and hiring minority candidates, I might suggest that we also add to that, or at least discuss with the committee, retaining, and have a component that if a minority teacher or employee leaves, that we have an exit interview to find out if there's something in our culture or climate that created that exit.
Good suggestion.
Can I just say, I'll be brief. It's hard for me to be brief because this is my favorite subject. But I think what people need to understand, and maybe what they don't understand, is how powerful it's going to be to have every elementary and every high school and every middle school have a diversity day or week when they actually eat the food, see the location of the places where these people are from, understand their language, understand their religion. When that's done, when all of us are no longer here and these people are in charge, they will have had that background, so they will be able to live in one world better than we're doing, or that's my hope. Thank you.
Ditto.
Spoken by like a true representative of our committee, so thank you, Ms. Kraft. All right. Thank you, Dr. Mel.
You're welcome.
All right. Next is our budget report, fund monitoring report. So I think that will be Dr. Daigle.
He'd rather sit anyway.
I was hoping there was going to be a blank board.
Yeah.
Okay, first one up is the general fund. Basically, right here we're looking at $2,975,000. We're going good. The cash balance is staying the same, just under $3 million. So we're happy with that. There's really nothing else to tell you. I mean, all the bills are being paid. We're on time with everything, and nothing surprises that I'm aware of right now. Debt service, we do have some activity this time. We're looking at $4,674,000, but see over here in the actual column, we actually paid some bills this month because it's either a January, July, or June or December type payment schedule. So we paid $110,000 for bonds, interest $72,000 on bonds, and then for holding corporation, we paid $865,000 for the principal and $88,000 for the interest. That's doing fine. The pension bond is the next one. Again, we had one payment, $490,000 in principal, $144,000 of interest. We're looking at a cash balance right now of about $370,000 by the end of the year. So we're doing okay there. Capital projects fund. Just paying the normal bills. We're really not seeing anything big come through right now. We're still holding at about $1.3 million on the cash balance by the end of the year is what we're looking at. And again, these are all subject to whatever the circuit breaker is eventually going to be for us. Transportation operating is my problem file right now. We're looking at a $230,000 deficit by the end of the year. Brian keeps telling me he's not going to be spending as much money as what we had budgeted, because he's got all of his parts in that he thinks he needs now. So that's the only one I'm really concerned about is transportation operating. On the bus replacement, we're looking at $204,000. Towards the end of the year, if this does hold through, and I don't really look to bail out transportation operating, I'd like to use that money to start buying some of the new buses that we need to start replacing. Because they're starting to get a solid need to replace those. And then rainy day fund, $3.5 million, and he gave us permission to borrow another $350,000 out of the project group away that we'll pay back in 2 increments in June and December, so December and June. So overall, we're doing pretty good. Do you have any questions?
All right. Next is the Wellness Center, 6-month analysis.
We meet periodically, monthly, with the Wellness Center as our insurance committee goes. And this is what the Wellness Center for Life presented to us. We've had 616, when they say unique patients, that means they came for one visit. Total visits were 1,718, so those people came for multiple visits. Prescriptions prescribed for the first 6 months, and really it was only about 5.5 months we started January 13th. We had 2,389 prescriptions issued. Labs, we had 891 labs performed. What the office visit copay by them coming to our wellness center saved our employees $42,950. The prescription copays were $23,390. So that's $65,000 right there. Direct savings on the office visits was $206,000. The prescription by going to our clinic was $40,613, and the labs saved us $24,000. So total direct savings just in the first 6 months is $271,000. They say that we're ahead of Vigo County where they first put in their clinic. They're very happy with our numbers, and I'd like to see better. But that's just me. Do you have any questions?
Are our employees happy with the service they're getting in their care?
Yes.
Are we doing anything to monitor that, or?
Every time you go, you'll get an email. We have your email account, and we have a survey.
Okay.
It's like 5 questions from a 1 to 5 analysis, and then they keep track of all that. And periodically, I go or Vince will present that information to us.
Okay.
We had a meeting with, we forgot one employee group, talked to the employees about the wellness center, and that was the retirees. So we invited all the retirees to come in, and we had 3 people show up. Had a nice breakfast for them, sweets, we had waffles, sugary stuff, and then we did a blood test right after that. So they needed to go to the wellness center. But, we were a little disappointed, that only 3 showed up, but the 3 that showed up, I said, you can go back and start telling other people retired to come, if they have our insurance, to come to our wellness center, it'll save them money. So they said they would.
There's a luncheon coming up next month for retired teachers in southern Indiana. I think it's at Kai's. You might want to see if you can get on the, of course you'd be talking to, that probably wouldn't be good. You'd be talking to New Albany and all those people, and then they'd get jealous, and probably don't want to do that.
Probably ugly.
Well, it was a good idea.
Dr. Dykle, looking at the unique patients, and this is probably not a fair question, but have you seen it begin to trend up, or did we have a high trend first, and then it's beginning to tail off? I mean, did we have a lot of appointments when we first started, and now we're not having as many appointments, or is it the other way around?
The problem that the clinic is seeing is between 10:30, 11 o'clock, and about 1 o'clock is their lull, because everybody's at work. Everybody wants to come between 3 and 6, and we've asked Dr. Burr if he could go ahead and reduce his 20-minute visit to a 15-minute visit for the one extra person. And, after we're into it 1 year, we may look at hiring a nurse practitioner then that would double up a lot of those time slots. That's the only thing that they really see, is just between, 10:30 and 1 is kind of a lull, because everybody's got to work unless the retirees, and I told them, the retirees, that would be a perfect time for them to come, because no one's there, or very few people are there.
Well, I guess mine was more around usage of the clinic itself, not so much the hours, but, did we see sort of a jump at first, and then
No, it's slowly been going up.
It's going up, okay.
People
All
have
right.
been passing through word of mouth and everything else. As long as they can get in there, the only time everybody wants is between 3 and 6, and then if they're watching them again, like that.
Yeah, gotcha.
Sorry, go to a different time.
Yeah, okay. Well, looks good. I mean, it looks like, 271,000 in savings over, 7 months or so?
5.5 months.
Yeah, so
6 months.
first 6 months. So we're on track to go over $500,000 savings at least on it,
Well,
or more, we hope, right. Okay.
the summer has been brutal to us
Yeah.
because of all the voluntary things that people get done during the summer. We had a $70,000 prescription week, which I'm going to spell out of my chair, and I almost needed the AED on that one. Normally it's
Current
around 30,000.
Yeah.
I don't want him getting me mouth to mouth.
I'm going to press your chest, though, is what I'll do. I'll give you those compressions.
But we get a report weekly from Humana as far as what's going through our account on claims and also on prescriptions, and I keep track of that. We've been as low as $18,000, $20,000 for 1 week on prescriptions. Then all of a sudden, this past Monday, we got it to $70,000.
Well, what's a normal week?
We're averaging about 33,000 over 32 weeks that we've been in operation.
All right, good data, thank you. All right, next is student achievement. I guess, Dr. Mellon, you have some updates on ISTEP or some discussions on ISTEP?
Yes, Board, I've provided a couple of documents for you this evening. And the first is a district comparison, and you can see that it's broken down into English language arts and over from ISTEP 12, 13, and 14. These are actual passage rates. You can see by grade level and then the totals, and then compared to the state averages. So you can see that with both English language arts and math. I think that it's important to note a couple of things with this report. State average in language arts passage is just slightly down from last year by 0.2% across our district, but we did fall a little bit further behind the state because the state increased its passage rate. So we've got about a 4% gap to make up, because I really believe we need to at least be at state average. With our school system, our goal is to be at least at state average or above, and so we're slightly below. From a math perspective, you can see that we're at 78.4%. That was a slight decrease of 1.2% over last year. That state average is 83.5, so it's about a 5% gap that we have. Remember, I've talked to you before about our IMAST impact with those students, and that's about a 2 to 3% difference in these passage rates, so we knew we would take a little bit of a hit. So that's part of what's going on there. You can see our demographics that are listed, and you can see our diversity is up slightly from 12-13 to 13-14. ELL population has increased. Our special ed population has remained relatively stable, but our free and reduced lunch population reduced slightly, which I think is a sign of the improving economy. If you also look, or the reason why they've got some color coding up under the district comparisons, you can sort of see where third graders were in 2012, 87.6%. In 13, they went to 87.8. So this is called like a cohort trend. And then they dropped in fifth grade to 88 or 81 rather percent. So conversations need to occur. You know, why is that happening with that group? If you go over to the math side of the equation, those same third graders, however, went from 78.6 to 81.3 as fourth graders to 90.4 as fifth graders. So you can see sort of trends by grade level, and it gives you sort of an idea systematically of where we are with different at different grade levels. iRead is down at the bottom of the screen, I think it's important to note that in 2012 we were at 84.1% passage, and in 2014 we're at 92.1. So very proud of that level of performance at the third grade level. We have another chart here that I think helps to break things down a little bit from the perspective of our elementary schools and our middle schools. So you can see on this first chart up above, it's math and language arts, grades 3 through 5, and it compares demographically a breakdown of where our students are, our corporation as a total, grades 3 through 5 versus the state. So you can see that we are above state average in grades 3 through 5 in most of the demographics except for ELL and Hispanic, which in language arts is not surprising. Obviously, language acquisition for those students is going to take a little more time. Now, over in the math side of the equation, you can see that, again, we're at state average in three of the categories, slightly below state average in a couple of the others. But I think it's important to note that if our goal is to be at state average or above, then you can see that our passage for all students is at 82.2% for Greater Clark, grades 3 through 5 in language arts, and 81.6% in math. So low 80% passage at our elementaries. We're right there, just above state average in language arts and just below state average in math. If you come down to grades 6 through 8, that is where we have a major area of focus. Because you can see the breakdown, we are well below state average in just about every demographic category, and that is concerning. This is a trend that's been going on for many years in the school system, and what we have done is we've started to put a plan in place. It actually started last school year. We have new leadership at every one of our buildings. Our longest tenured principal at the middle school level has 2 years of experience. So we have new leadership. We've changed our delivery system. We have now double blocks of math, double blocks of language arts. We have an impact program that every student gets individual support every day at the middle school level. And we've also put Mrs. Schellenberg in charge of the whole middle school operation. Her expertise in school improvement and curriculum, I think, is vital, and I want her to dedicate 90% or so of her time to our middle schools. We also have our special ed department has made a huge commitment, because you can see special ed population is an area in which we just need to provide a higher level of support in that particular area. So this is a trend. If you look at 68% passage for 6 through 8, grades 6 through 8, Greater Clark, we're 5 percentage points below the state average. And in math, we're almost 8% below the state average. And with our elementary performance as solid and stable as it is, we just know we have a little bit more work to do, but I think we're putting the right people in the right places and putting the right programs in place, and we're trying to turn a trend around that's been a trend for many years, and it's going to be a challenge. But we are up to that challenge, and I'm confident that we'll see the results start to turn in another direction. Questions?
From what I see, if you go back to the comparing with the cohorts, the other chart, looks like to me the middle school level is a very tough time in kids' life, especially at the 6th grade. They're coming from a structured, stay in the classroom, and now they get to more freedom. And it looks like if you look at the 6th grade, from between 6 to 7, between 5 to 6, that 6th grade level needs a lot of attention. And for some reason, scores are dropping at that age group, and I mean that just stands out to me, the 6th grade.
And even, you're right, 6th grade starts the drop, but the most significant drop is 7th grade, from 6th to 7th. And so you're absolutely correct. The conversation has to be what's going on, why is that happening, You're right, because as kids are used to coming out of that elementary environment with that one teacher they have all day long, they go into all of a sudden a middle school where they have 7 teachers. And it is a total change in their whole perspective. And we, though, need to make sure that we're in tune with that as well, as an educational staff. And whereas in high school, when they're transitioning from middle school to high school, now they've had 3 years of that under their belts. They're more mature. Our high school metrics are very strong. Our end of course passage is close to state average in both language arts and math. You know about our graduation rate. You'll see pretty soon our ACT scores will be released. They're actually embargoed until tomorrow, but you'll see some really positive results with our ACT performance at the high school level. You see our high schools performing at a very competitive level relative to the state, and you see that at the elementary as well. So I think that we have to take a hard look at what we're doing at the middle school. I think we're taking a hard look at instructional practices. How can we better meet the needs of those kids at that level? And to be honest, down the road, we have to start looking further down the road. There are other configurations that may have to be thought through as we're looking at the future of our district. There's research out there that could say that other grade configurations would make more sense. And the middle school concept, in philosophy, there are a lot of positives to it, but if we're not getting our academic achievement to where we need it, then perhaps we need to take a harder look at how we're configuring our current middle schools. All I know is that we are all in terms of dedicating ourselves to figuring out what the answers are to those questions.
Well, Dr. Mellon and I had a chance to, I guess, a deep dive into some of this data, and one of the components that he's going to be looking at, and I think it's very important, is how our intercession kids did in this testing. Obviously, we put a lot of resources into that, so very anxious to see how that goes. I mean, that may say that we need to figure out a way to get more kids into intercession if indeed we begin to see those students going in the opposite direction of some of the numbers we're seeing here. So it'll be interesting to see how that data looks.
And board, the other thing that I think we need to be thinking about is, remember, this is raw data. Every student who was in our buildings at that time of testing. That student could have come in that very first day from another school system. Their data is reflected right here. So the more mobility you have, sometimes that's going to impact, and that's the other part of the study that we're going to do, is the mobility impact. The more mobility you have, the potential is for your results, for you to struggle with your results. Now, remember this, when the school accountability grades do come out, there is a standard that only students who've been in that school for 162 days will count. So what you will see is, in terms of our overall passage rates and scores, etc., will go up, I would believe, because it'll only take into account 162-day students. So our schools that have particularly high levels of mobility, they should see an increase in their passage rates when the school accountability rates or grades come out. So I think you'll see that happen.
I think that none of us want to see these red numbers and these negatives, but I think we also need to be careful to actually think about what those percentages relate to, because as your groupings get smaller, as the subgroups get smaller, like special ed was, I think, 16% of our population. So a 5% change in that population for grades 6 through 8 might be 16 kids. So not that we should celebrate that 16 more students didn't pass, but when you spread that over 3 schools and you really drill down and you look at who those kids are, and we used to call them the bubble kids. They're the kids that, 1 year passed, next year didn't pass. It's something we can change, is what I'm trying to say.
And there's
Take
no
a long
doubt.
way to get there, but
there's no doubt, in the special ed demographic, because again, we made many more special ed students take the I-STEP test as opposed to the IMAS test. We think in the long run it's in their best interest because IMAS will not even exist next spring. So that's what we did with that population. So to look at that, I think you just need to keep in mind that we took that population and we really challenged them from the standpoint of taking a test that was a much more challenging test for that population. So I think that is significant. And the key factor for all of us is these are all numbers and they're important, but it goes back to your point that every school needs to look at their particular student population and they need to figure out what number of students are we talking about here, because in many cases it is a very small number that will make a very big difference. It's not like these numbers. When you're talking about wanting to increase by 5% across our district, it's not a great number of kids, but what we need to do is identify who are those kids who are very close to that level, and are we providing them the levels of service that they need to be able to close those gaps. And that is what's happening with our school improvement plans right now.
Are we planning to have any kind of 5th grade, 6th grade teacher exchange or teacher communication so that they could better prepare those children for what they're going to have in the 6th grade?
Mm-hmm.
Are we planning to do that? Because sometimes people get so protective of their own school in their own area that they hesitate to go to the next level to discuss that. But I think that would be profitable for the children.
I know that the one thing we've done from a curriculum perspective is we've worked so hard on what are we teaching kids by grade level, by particular subject, and we know that we need to have more conversations about what's called vertical articulation. And what is it? That goes to your point. Our kids, as they're coming out of 5th grade, making sure what are those expectations at the 6th grade level, so our 5th grade teachers and our 6th grade teachers are having that dialogue to help that transition. But I will tell you what the research also shows, the most difficult transition right now is the 8th to 9th grade. Mm-hmm. So we do need the 5th to 6th conversation, and we need it going from 8th to 9th as well to help those kids. So we are starting the conversations about vertical articulation, but we need to go deeper with that.
A simple thing, like if a 5th grade child was allowed to learn to use a planner, just a simple thing like keeping their own planner, not something that somebody made for them, because when they get to 6th grade, they're going to need to do that. Yeah. And if they learn that, and they learn that they're going to need to be doing that, same way with taking responsibility for your actions. If you learn it in middle school, then chances are you might get the certificate in high school. But if you don't learn that, they need to know if they don't take charge of their own data, they're not ever going to get there. So some of it's tough love.
Dr. Mellon, it's the state we're in. This is a scoreboard that we're judged on. Mm-hmm. And when you're coaching, when the clock gets to 0, people look at the scoreboard. Next year at this time, when it gets to 0, we'll look at this scoreboard again, and we hope we come out a little bit better. And we can talk about all the variables, all the different things, but this is a scoreboard that we got to live by, and we're going to be classified and scored by. So we got to get it done.
I agree. Good point.
All right. Any further questions? Okay, we'll move on into the consent agenda. We have 6 items there tonight. I'd like to take all those together.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Be 5-0. Ms. Kraft, would you do the
No, he isn't here.
would you do the honor of the gifts to buildings?
Well, you can see they're wonderful.
They are.
Over $158,000 worth of gifts to buildings. Great PTO do a marvelous job, don't they? Look at that. So, I mean, that's a lot of money. It's almost $3,000 for after-school enrichment. And, of course, we're just very grateful to the community. We think we're this good, and apparently they think we are too. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, the second line there, the JVB investment, the land transfer agreement of $147,000. I think that was quite gracious of that company to do that for us, and let them in publicly.
All right, we're always appreciative of the gifts from the community. So, do I have a motion to accept those? Thank you. Ms. Perkins?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Moving into action items. First item on the agenda is the JAG Memorandum of Understanding.
Board, it's my pleasure tonight to talk a little bit about the JAG program. It's Jobs for America's Graduates. And last year was the very first year of the program. Around the state of Indiana, there are 118 school sites, and Jeffersonville High School is one of those sites. In our first year last year, we had 45 students, which is pretty much the max number you want. These are students that are some of our most challenged students in our school system, and they have to apply for the program. Their parents have to be engaged in that process, and once they're accepted to the program, then they have one period a day where they are meeting with a JAG coach, a JAG supervisor, who is hired by our local Work One entity. That person sees those students every day and really becomes like a mentor for them to make sure they are getting through their school experiences appropriately, helping to prepare them for different career skills that are going to be needed, helping with summer job placements and things of that nature. So the whole goal is to take kids that have really been struggling. What can we do to help them with that post-secondary mission that we have, to be accepted to a post-secondary opportunity? So, it said, I guess the original plan was to have 45 students. There were 36 students enrolled in the program. And board, I thought that I had connected this to your board document, so I will forward this to you. I apologize. But of the 36 students in the JAG program, 7 transferred to other schools during the school year. 1 dropped out but obtained a GED. 19 have received diplomas from Jeff High School. 19 of the 36 received their regular high school diploma. That's a tremendous success rate for this demographic. 1 student is actively working online to complete course requirements so he can receive his diploma. Of the remaining students, 6 have returned for a second year in the JAG program. So even the one that dropped out was moved into a GED program and received his GED. 7 transferred to other schools, so can't do much about that. 19 of them received their diplomas, and 6 have come back for another year in the JAG program, which they're entitled to do. The thing that I could go on and on, but let me just tell you, the JAG students, they participated in the 2014 Career Development Conference hosted by Work One, Southern Indiana Region 10. In Jeffersonville, JAG students competed with New Albany High School chapter in the areas of Outstanding Senior Award, Career Presentation, Creative Solutions, Employability Skills, Financial Literacy, Public Speaking, Critical Thinking, and Writing Skills. Jeffersonville students won the award for Best Chapter Commercial, won the Outstanding Senior Award, won the award for Best Cover Design, first and second place for Creative Solutions, first, second, and third place in Financial Literacy, first and third place in Critical Thinking, second and third place in Employability Skills. The first place winners competed at the State JAG Conference in Indianapolis, where the Jeffersonville High School Outstanding Senior took second place and was granted a $1,500 award in recognition of her achievement. So again, these are kids that just need a little bit more time and attention, and this JAG program has been outstanding, taking that group of kids to higher levels. And so I'm sorry, I thought I had attached it to your board doc, so I will email it to you afterwards so you have this document. But at this time, I would like to recommend that the board approve the Memorandum of Understanding with Jobs for America's Graduates.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Questions, comments?
Yeah, Dr. Mellon, in in their memorandum of understanding here, it says part of their performance goals that a 90% graduation GED rate would be established. And if you just said 19 of 36 received diplomas, that's 53%. And so, I mean, if they're not meeting their performance goals, am I missing something there?
No, I don't think you are. You know, actually the GED student would count in that too. So that would be the 20 of the 36. Remember, 7 transferred out, so that would be 20 out of 29. So that percentage, I'll get the exact data that you'll need for that. But looking at the state, there's a catalog that was provided to me last Friday at the state level, and it'll show what all of the sites do. Remember, this is year 1 of the JAG program, so I think you'll start to see over time, as it's more firmly established, you'll start to see that percentage increasing.
Yeah, and it says that we have a 12-month follow-up period. So that's from May to, or June to June.
Correct.
So really, we still have 6 months to go or 8 months to go.
And what we'll do is, part of their job, part of Mr. Cleveland, Brian Cleveland, is the JAG instructor, and part of his job is to make sure that that year outside of the program, that what is happening with those kids, because it's not just about getting them to graduate with a diploma or GED, it's about now what's happening with them that next year outside in whatever the college or career phase is. So he stays connected with them. So I think we'll have data not on just graduates, but now where are they a year later? And are they still in college, or are they still working, et cetera? And they do a really good job. I'll provide the catalog to you, because the state does a great job of tracking those metrics.
Is the principal at Jeff High comfortable with this? Is she supportive of this?
Yes. In the email that she provided, this document, she says that JAG and Mr. Cleveland have made a tremendous positive impact on the students who have been involved. Many of last year's students were headed toward dropping out and or jail if their paths did not take dramatic turns that JAG prepared them to take. So that's from Mrs. Strait.
Couple questions, Dr. Mellon. Is this program unique to JHS? I mean, is there an opportunity for CHS or New Washington students to be in that?
The state greatly increased their number of sites last year that enabled Jeffersonville to be considered. They're looking at specific demographics around the state to make those site decisions, and so they're looking at different things like the diversity factor, socioeconomic status factors. So that's how they're making their initial decisions. I think JAG would love to see, as more funding comes in to the state, they expanded, I think, from 60-some sites to 118 last year. So maybe there'll come a point where a Charlestown High School could be considered. It's a great program for kids, because it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. There's a segment of kids in every high school in this state that could greatly benefit from this program.
And I'm looking at this, back to Mr. Hall's point about the 90% graduation rate. How do you get around Southern transfer? I mean, you would never hit 90% if you have transfer students. So
I'm going to have to, I'll talk to them about how they finalize their graduation rate, because in their catalog they provided last Friday, they have all the sites in Indiana and they have all of their data, and I'll have to figure out how that percentage, because if a student transfers, they're no longer technically in that cohort. I need to know what that cohort is.
Right.
So I know that 36 minus the 7 is 29, and then what happens when students return? What does that count for or against? Because there's 6 that return, so if you minus that, now it's 23, and now you have 20 out of 23. I'll have to figure it out more, and I'll report back.
Just curious. Yeah.
And last question, how do we fund this? How do we pay for this?
We don't pay anything. The grant from the state pays for the cost of the instructor. Pardon me. We do provide a classroom for the kids, and we do provide technology for a computer for the teacher, but we don't pay for the instructor's salary. That comes through Work One funds and through the state. So it's really a sort of a win-win situation from our perspective.
All right. No. All right, all in favor? B5-0, thank you. Had to remember if I asked for motions yet. All right, next one is the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community through Indiana University. And Ms. Schnepp, I think, is going to take us through that.
Over here.
Just have a seat. Very good. This is actually a renewal of the contract we had last year with IIDC, and what they are providing us with is 6 days of training in the area of autism. And what we're doing with that is we've asked each building to have a point person, and we're training them so that they have expertise in every building. And we're using Sister Jordan, who actually was an employee of ours, who's now gone back to IU and is doing her postgraduate work, and also has become a very important aspect of our It's our loss, but we still get to use it.
While they're here. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kraft.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. And looks like this is all paid out of federal funds as well. So, yeah. Okay, questions, comments? All in favor? B5-0, thank you. Thank you. Next is the contract with Marjorie Simic, Navigation Learning Solutions, and Ms. Snellenberg's taking us through that.
This is continuation of Title I professional development. The schools submitted amendments for their Title I plans in late April, early May. It took until June 30 was the close date. We did not get approval on our amendments until after June 30. The DOE with Title I is really in a flux. So when they created, the schools wanted to take whatever money they have left to add on additional professional development days for March Simic to come in to facilitate walkthroughs, work with grade levels on reading, has had a tremendous impact on these buildings, and the teachers respect those buildings have a really good handle on the program that they're implementing for each.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I got to look at this cost. I'm not real sharp, but it's $6,000 for 3 days. $2,000 at $2,100, $12 a day. We're paying this person? Wow.
That's really the low end of performance, yes, very low.
All right. Further questions? All in favor? 4 against? 1. Thank you. 4-1. All right. We don't have any discussion items and reports request. Mr. Hall?
No, thank you.
Ms. Perkins?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kraft?
No, thank you.
Mr. White?
No, thank you.
All right. No public comments on non-agenda items. Board comments. Back to you, Mr. Hall.
Just excited. Last meeting, we talked about getting school started. Now, great time of year. Athletics gets kicked off this week. We got great kids in our corporation. We got good coaches. We got good facilities. Like to see everybody get out, watch a ball game, go to a play, see a band concert. Just get out and get involved.
Ms. Perkins?
What could have turned into a horrible situation for a lot of students was facilitated and helped by a lot of people in school corporation and when our 2 buses had their accident in the other car. And I would just like to publicly say thank you to the people in this building that came to help in that situation. I understand if you got in the way of some of the secretaries, you would have been plowed down trying to get out here to those children that were in need, and I appreciate that very much.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Kraft? Okay. Mr. White?
Nothing, thank you.
Well, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Ms. Lewis. I know she's finishing up with us here before too awful long, and we wish you well. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and you've made a difference. So thanks for all you've done, and good luck on whatever path you decide to go.
Thank you. You know, it's been 24 years since I was hired by Greater Clark, and I still love my job as much today as the day that I was hired on. It's been a great experience, a lot of different experiences, and met a lot of people along the way that I treasure. And look forward to change in the first law and try to not be my actions.
Thank you. Dr. Miller?
I think the only other thing I would like to add is I appreciated, related to the bus accident, the thing that I was most impressed with is not just the commitment of all the staff from this office in Parkview that was on site, but also our first responders, police, fire, EMS. People came from all over. The control of the site, the environment, it was outstanding. You hate to ever experience something like that. Thank goodness that our students and drivers were okay. They weren't seriously injured, first and foremost, but secondly, the fact that everyone worked so well together was a tribute to everyone involved. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Board.
With that, I need a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Thank you, Ms. Kraft. All in favor? All right. Good night.